This is part 2 in Clavis Insights and One Stone e-commerce solutions beyond Amazon series. Today's topic is establishing collaborative brand and omni-channel retailer partnerships. And we're pleased to be co-presenting this webinar with One Stone e-commerce solutions and Walmart and Jet.com. One Stone is a firm that comes alongside brands of all shapes and sizes at the enterprise or project level in order to architect a data-driven plan, drive execution, and proactively monitor and measure real-time results across any and all pure-play and or omni-channel platforms, from Amazon to Walmart.com and beyond. Visit onlyonestone.com for details on One Stone services. We are joined by leaders within the Walmart.com and Jet.com ecosystem who are proving out an active commitment to shared goals and growth objectives with their brand partners. As you know, Walmart is the world's largest brick-and-mortar retailer and the second most visited online retailer as Walmart.com. Additionally, Walmart's acquisition of Jet.com in 2016 grew Walmart's global e-commerce footprint significantly. Jet's unique platform interface and targeted consumer audience is growing at an unprecedented pace. We're excited to be joined with our presenters today, Megan Bowman, Carmela Cugini, and Monica Schechter. Carmela is the GM of Grocery at Walmart U.S. e-commerce. Carmela joined Jet.com in April of 2018, just after the Walmart acquisition was announced. She onboarded with Mark Laurie at Jet after spending 18 years with PepsiCo. Carmela and her team believe that developing strong brand partnerships is the foundation to delivering a best-in-class experience for the consumer. Monica Schechter serves as the category lead for beverages within Walmart Global E-commerce. And here to walk us through simple steps a group can take as they look to work beyond Amazon when it comes to e-commerce strategy and execution is One Stone's Chief Innovation Officer, Megan Bowman. Megan has been programming computers since the age of 9 and lives within the intersection of consumer behavior, supply chain evolution, and retail technology. Megan, take it away. Oh, Megan, you might still be on mute.
Hey, sorry about that. Thank you. Thanks, Paul, and Clavis Insight, One Click Retail, Planet Retail, and of course, Carmela and Monica and the team at Walmart for the opportunity to be here today. Whether you're a seasoned pure play veteran, having worked within the Amazon ecosystem, or your background lies in traditional brick and mortar, the principles explored within this presentation, while simple, should not be ignored. The principles that we're going to explore are know where you want to go, know what the retailer is looking for, and transparency wins. Believe it or not, we work with brands all over the country that are large and small, and a lot of times when we're looking beyond specifically Amazon, we have to start with the due diligence of this particular knowledge set. But first, go ahead, Paul. But first, let's just back up, and Carmela is going to help us understand the why. Why are we taking an hour of our day to talk through collaborative opportunities within the Walmart omnichannel environment and beyond?
Thanks, Megan.
Carmela?
Appreciate it. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much. Wanted to talk a little bit about the opportunity at hand. So if you're on the call, you clearly know there's a lot of opportunity on e-commerce. And as we look to the future, what we know is that in the next 5 years, we'll reach record highs on e-commerce sales, roughly about $700 billion. If you look at that with regards to food, let's see if we can move forward. There we go. If you look at that with regards to food and how we're penetrated online versus other categories, what you're going to see is food is incredibly underpenetrated at 3% of the market online. unlike places like books and computers, they're at roughly 75%. So when you look at where e-commerce sales are today online, they represent about $20 billion. And so we are expecting food sales online to reach over $100 billion in the next 5 years. We will experience the most growth in food than across any other category, and it will happen very, very quickly. So positioning ourselves properly now is really critical to not only our success, but hopefully your success as well. As we think about food and e-commerce, it's an interesting thing because the way people think of food today really is changing. It used to, the way we thought about it didn't have a lot to do with health. And over the last few years, people have really emerged thinking about 5 mega food trends, and there's 24 sub-trends to food. And the reason this is important is it's because how people think about it, it's how they shop for it. And as we get into discussions on content, it will be really important that you understand this so that we're positioning food correctly to the consumer so they can find it, because it is very different than walking an aisle. So as you think about food, there's really 5 big buckets. There's food integrity, essentially things that are absent from food, non-GMO, no process, all those types of things. Purposeful eating, actually the inclusion of nutrition in food. And then there's fresh food. So fresh food, 60% of people engage with that. And one of the interesting perspectives on fresh is that whoever does fresh the best gets the halo impact of quality. So fresh speaks to quality. So it's really important that we get that right. And various platforms online will do that in different ways. We'll talk more about that later. The next big trend is easy eat. So people are running out of time, and especially with our younger consumers, both millennials and the demographic coming up behind them, it's all about making it easy and fast. So snacking is on the rise. We just actually met with IRI yesterday, and they were saying how they expect snacking occasions to increase pretty dramatically over the next 5 years. So less big meals and a lot more snacking to come. And then last but not least is foodie culture. So when we think about food, people are really concerned about health, but they also want to indulge. And so what we're finding is they want to experiment with flavors. They want to cheat and have a treat from time to time, hence the big rise of donuts. But they also want to try to eat healthy and have acceptable places to go. So cookies with whole grain in them, natural sugar, those types of things. So attribution of food is so incredibly important, and understanding this is important as you think about how do I position my food online. Now that we know how they think about food, one of the big questions I keep asking is, why do they choose an online retailer to shop food? So we did a pretty big in-depth study, and this is just the highlight of that study. And essentially what this says is people choose an online retailer based on 3 big buckets. We actually found 13 big themes and 49 underlying attributes. I've only pulled to the top the most pertinent ones here, the top tier, so to speak. So what this is saying is that consumers really stay with an online retailer because of convenience and easy experience. They will switch, though, and change over pricing. And within price is not just money, it's also fast and free shipping. And then assortment, it plays in the middle. It will not only help you acquire a customer, but it will also help you keep a customer. And so it's not just, hey, do I have a lot of items? It's about having quality assortment. It's about the delivery experience. Do you have bulky items at value? And do you allow the consumer to find what they want? Just not, when we say recommendations, it's not just a 5-star review. It's also about clicking on an item and being able to see adjacencies to that item. And then meal planning, although it's not very big today, meal planning is something called a trend writer, and that's essentially saying younger people today think this is really important for the future. So if you really want to be thinking about this, although it's not going to drive your business today, it will really be important in the future. And then last but not least, fresh and local. So you can't do that everywhere. You have to do that right, and that's why click and collect has become so big in various experiences like Fresh Direct or Jet Fresh in the city. So with that said, I'm going to pass it back to Megan, and she can kind of talk about where we're going from here.
Thanks, Carmela. So given the fact that the consumer landscape is actively changing, especially within the grocery category, not all pure play and or omni, including ship to store or click and collect, are created equal. You see, in the age of the everything store, we've become lulled, perhaps jolted into what I call the endless aisle overload. It sounds simple, but understanding your brand, category, and competition, and most importantly, your shopper, will not only open doors beyond Amazon, but allow you to place strategic bets along the way. Again, it sounds really simple, but take time to know where you want to go. What would an e-commerce presentation be without the proverbial WDPGD? What does P&G do? We're intentionally staying out of the food category for some of these examples, just to protect clients in the category. But we can learn a lot from other categories. For example, Tide. They play a lot of platforms, albeit when you go into every platform that's highlighted on attached, they really have different strategic assortments. With the support of Flywheel Digital, they play across Amazon, but when you take a look at their assortment beyond Amazon, you'll find variations and targeted offerings that cater to the particular retailer shopper demographic. Given the fact that there are different profit models and shipping models as well, a group like Tide does a really good job of planning their assortment for the maximum effectiveness across channels beyond Amazon. Next. Obviously, Nestle Purina Pet Care Company has placed their dog chow across multiple online retailers again. I invite you to take a look at their assortment variety. One size does not fit all in terms of that dog chow bag looks really different across many different online retailers. One of my favorites is that Jet.com, our very own Carmela and Monica, has one of the best Xbox deals on the planet. And so, again, knowing that, and Monica and Carmela will dive into a little bit about the Jet shopper specifically, but knowing that they're capturing a millennial audience, specifically within usually an urban environment. Ironically, when Carmela talks about adjacency items, albeit not within the grocery category, but Xbox's biggest growth is within Jet, which is really fun. Next. We'll keep going, and you can see the items highlighted. And again, bananas are probably as commoditized as they come. However, the way that they're sold and the way that the user interface happens across everything from Hy-Vee via the Instacart app to Amazon Prime Pantry is very different. And so, like Carmela said, ensuring that the way that the product is positioned specifically, even though it may be the same product or a variation of the product, is really important. We'll buzz through the next couple of these. You'll get the idea. Apparel, sporting goods, all of these categories have started to figure out the assortment modeling. And as Carmela said, grocery is far behind in terms of the penetration online. And what that does for you guys as retailers and us is help learn from other categories in terms of what works. Now, it's not always a one-to-one comparison, but it's an opportunity to explore within your teams. Let's take a pause and talk about bottled water. It's one of the heaviest to ship, read expensive, and lowest AOR, plus the most purchased via subscription item within the online system today. Did you know that there's well over 1,000 bottled water ASINs on Amazon alone? My friends at One Click Retail would need to verify the exact count and market share leaders, but it's water. And in order to compete in the bottled water space, running a buckshot approach just doesn't work. So of all of these that we've looked at, bottled water actually penetrates the most online retailers that are shown here. Well, Aquafina and Dasani and the like, it's all water, but the way they have it packaged, the way they have it presented, and the way the adjacency items within the categories, depending on the particular retailer, are coded, show much to be learned in terms of strategic pairing and partnering. And as Carmela alluded to, the food trends and then why people stay on particular platforms, you can start to piece together an assortment strategy that will maximize your brand and potentially your profit on the various retailers. Okay, so it feels obvious, but we work with really sophisticated work groups at some of the largest CPGs, and oftentimes the assortment engineering comes down to know what the retailer is looking for, and it sounds really simple, but as many of you have grown up within the Amazon ecosystem, you can go to the next slide, we've become kind of lulled to sleep that the assortment is everywhere. And so as this is a series beyond Amazon, what we're trying to do is introduce some principles that may actually look and feel a little bit more like brick and mortar. Go ahead. This is a slide that I used a lot in 2014 to 2016. When transitioning teams here in Bentonville or in Cincinnati or wherever, from a brick mindset to a click mindset, I often juxtapose the difference between sitting in a layout center, trying to sell your one product into a buyer who would distribute across 3,400 retailers in the Walmart ecosystem on the left, with what we used to call the ultimate hands off the wheel, the millennial who was just hired in at Amazon out of his or her MBA, and essentially it's every man for himself. Load early and load often, and just pray that the algorithms keep you going. The interesting thing as we look through kind of that ditch-to-ditch effort between the classic brick and the evolution to more click, with the onslaught of Amazon, a lot of organizations have not kind of met that middle ground. And what Carmela and Monica and teams like theirs are doing a great job of is kind of marrying those two disciplines. Next slide. Like I said, we've got news for you. 2014 called and it wants its strategy back. You'll see on the left side, this also is a classic slide or concepts that I actually still see in a lot of current e-commerce forums today. And not to be critical, but it's evolved a little bit. Next slide. Everything circled in red has a nuance that feels very endless aisle, everything store centric. And what we're learning, and I know you guys are learning as well, that with only a 3% market penetration right now online, is that as that growth happens, as Carmela mentioned, running the play that is not exactly where it needs to be could waste a lot of time and energy. And so as you're putting together the multi-platform assortments, everywhere from pure play to click and collect to ship to store to ship to home, make sure that you focus specifically on these potential circled in red areas that say, hey, this is, I hate to say it, but this is kind of the old way to do it. So, 2 years ago we were saying, guys, everything on the left is the old way and everything on the right is the new way. And now, the new way is evolving one more step. Next slide. A concept that is our third concept in terms of brand and retailer collaboration is transparency. Transparency wins. The interesting thing when I talk with brands about, what would it look like to sit down with their potential e-commerce or brick and mortar centric / e-commerce merchandising team, is the fact that with the scraping of bots and all the data that's out there from a UI UX perspective, if you hide things, now granted, they're probably, Carmela's not going to go and, run all sorts of scripts and scrape, all the competition's websites, but they could. And so to feel like we have transparency as brands and vendors, to feel like we have information that we can hold close as vendors, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense anymore, especially in the age of machine learning and artificial intelligence. The data's out there. It's just a matter of piecing it together. So what I encourage my brand teams to do is to approach the different retailers. Now, albeit you need to keep firewalls up and manage the strategies and the relationships appropriately. But it's amazing what you can do when you help a specific channel or a specific platform understand that what you've built for them is specific for them, and here's why. And oh, by the way, the reason it's different from platform X, Y, and Z is because I've listened to you and I know what you're looking for, and we can work on this together and we can tweak it together. Again, 10 years ago, you know, a buyer in a brick and mortar layout center or, you know, up in Target land meeting situation didn't have immediate access on their phone to see exactly what the competition is doing. They can see that now, and your merchants can see that, and they're matching prices and moving promotions faster than a lot of times we can even track them. So being proactive about transparency typically goes a lot farther than a lot of brands feel comfortable with originally. But once they try it a few times, it tends to help everybody across the board. The key with transparency is to understand exactly where everything is, when, where, how, and why, which oftentimes takes cross-collaboration across your sales unit. Next slide. This is just another example of a kind of a ghosted out, redacted way that that we encourage you know, some of our largest clients to be really transparent with the different retailers. Again, you're not competing against channel by channel. So Amazon, if you're selling widget X, you're not really competing widget X on Amazon versus widget X on Walmart. Now, you know, the Walmart platform and the Amazon platform will always compete, but in terms of your brand, the idea is that you need to be competing within your category, which, when you have cross-collaboration and cross-transparency, you can actually, the more transparent you are, the better you can snuff out your competition, which is ultimately the goal. Interestingly enough, you know, Walmart's brick and mortar retail link data was incredibly transparent for its time. And as I work definitely up in Bruno and in Hoboken, it's really neat to see that teams like Carmelo's have no problem really laying out what they want to go get, how they want to go get it, and what they need from us. It's a little bit different than being out in Seattle, where again it's a throw it up and start playing the game. So Carmelo, why don't you tell us a little bit about what transparency looks like on your end?
Thanks, Megan. I appreciate that. As you think about the Walmart ecosystem, and really from our point of view, what makes a great partner, we do believe in transparency. We think that it just creates a better win-win partnership at the end of the day, and we can both win together. But to be a great partner with Walmart, I would say there's so much changing, and for those of you who have worked with us, you know that we move quickly. It's very different than old CPG. So I came 18 years from Pepsi, and we had a strategy. We stuck with the strategy, and it was very hard to pivot and move. Going to retail is very different in and of itself, and then when you add e-commerce to it, that accentuates the acceleration. So I know we talk a lot about our strategies, and sometimes they change. So you might sit down with our brick and mortar counterpart and do a 3-year JBP, and that's great. But in our world, a JBP is probably 12 months at best, right? We really need to be more fluid and pivot more quickly. So this is what I will tell you is incredibly important, and these 3 big areas really don't change. So first of all, it's about getting the assortment right. And we talked about that earlier. It's really important to the consumer that we do get this right. So we talk about it in 3 ways. The first one is full assortment. So if you remember, those of you who know this, last year, we took all of our SKUs that were in the store and we brought them online. And we quickly realized consumers really like to buy low average unit retail products. And they bought them in grand amounts. The challenge with a low retail unit, think about something that's $2 or $3, right? Your margin, if you're making 20 or 30% margin, you know how much money is in that. And when you think about pick and fulfillment, you know, you could be losing money on every single item on that type of situation. So full assortment in our mind means this. We want to have every flavor. We need to have it in the proper pack size. So we want the pack size consumers like and they resonate with. And we're trying to create capability internally to say, how do we package that? Do we create a 2-pack bundle? Do we do a 4-pack bundle? How do we do this so that it actually makes sense and we become more efficient? At the end of the day, we want to give the consumer what they want, but we also need to make sure that we're doing this responsibly so that we can continue to be in business. And we believe, we feel pretty good about our chances at Walmart with regards to, can we really do this in food? They are an amazing retailer, and being acquired by them since I was at Jet first, I can't tell you how much of a great partnership it is there. So again, full assortment is, we want every flavor, but we want it in the right pack size, and we will openly collaborate with you on what that looks like. From time to time, that can change, but we will be very transparent and let you know how we're thinking about it and how we think it should flex. But I'm feeling pretty good about what our strategy looks like moving forward. Secondly is content, both basic and enhanced. So I talked a little bit about food attribution. That's really important to ensure that the consumer can find what they want, but just getting the basics right. Do we have a good image? Do we have the proper title? Is the UPC correct? We want one UPC per product. We can't have one UPC covering multiple products because that doesn't work in our system because it's all machine learning. And we don't have a mod where one comes off and the other comes on. So those types of things are really important to get those crisp and get those right. And then, you know, we will be with Walmart, and I'll talk a little bit about our supply chain, but we need the best COGS as possible because we run an EDLP play. We're not going to run high-low. If you know that, we do follow in-store pricing. You can go online and you'll see that we're following the store price with some downward limitations on things that are under $1. But overall, we try to be very, very straightforward on these things. With regards to marketing, once you are in the ecosystem with us, there are many ways you can unlock marketing, both on Walmart and on Jet. I will say that we are very willing to do test and learn with you within limitation because I only have so many resources I can do that with, but we want to work with you to see what makes sense. And the beauty of doing something online is that we're very nimble and we can do things and test them. We don't have to wait for a mod to test and learn. We can do it very quickly and pivot. We're going to be transparent on what those budgets look like, and we want to use category insights to drive the right type of marketing. So our category team will work with you to ensure that we do that in a win-win way. And then last but not least is supply chain. So I'll talk more about what our supply chain network looks like. But if you think about it, there's really two parts of our business. The front end is what the consumer sees. The back end is our supply chain, and we share our supply chain with Walmart. So we could really resource their store shared SKUs into our fulfillment centers. However, what is missing in that transaction is the tail. So in the store, you may only be able to fit 10 SKUs on the shelf because you're limited. What we want is the 10 SKUs plus the flavor tail. So I'll just use an example with Heinz because I was just looking at them. So they have their core mainstream ketchup. I know in store they carry the jalapeno, but there may be stores that are too small to carry all those 14-ounce flavors. We would want to take those on and make sure the consumer can get it. That's the power of the endless shelf. So understand that we can resource internally, but we need to do it in a way that makes sense for you and for us so that we can, you know, be efficient. Next is e-com ready packaging. So think about vinegar. Gallon jug vinegar does not ship very well. It breaks. It then creates additional damage in a package that we would call collateral damage. So think through chips, right? You need the 32-count chips in a box ship the best because they're protected by the box. 9.5-ounce, 10.5-ounce bags, we can ship them and we do our best to package them right, but it's very challenging. So I would encourage any CPG company to really think through what is a pack that will work on the shelf at Walmart because we know that they're trying to really get pack ready on the shelf that could then transition onto e-commerce and make it easy. So the one thing we don't want to have you do is create all these incremental SKUs and go through another stage gate cycle just because we want them separate. We really should think about SKUs as an e-commerce or as a total Walmart ecosystem. So how can you create things that look great online with imaging that you can then put on the shelf that makes sense, and maybe we ship the box of it because it's e-com ready to the consumer. So it's a new space not a lot of folks are in, but I think it's one that will differentiate you for the future. In addition, the one beauty in food is we have code dates on food. So we have to be very careful about that. And then we want to make sure we're always looking at, what is leaving the portfolio and what is coming on, so we can always keep the assortment clean and tight. And then last but not least, I know that as we're growing, we may not be hitting the minimum order quantities to get into a fulfillment center today. Just transparently, we know that. We do ask that you lean in with us, because one of the challenges we have is if we can't get things in stock, then we can't get them on the shelf to sell, and then you won't have the growth that will allow us to hit your minimum order quantity. So we initially like you to lean in with us, and we can get the numbers up so that we can begin to partner with you to hit those minimums. There is so much work happening on the supply chain side, and it's evolving every day. I don't even know all the great work happening there, but what I can tell you is when you meet with us and you're talking through your options, we will help guide you the best way possible. Next, it's about, sometimes it helps to understand what we're working on as a team. And we'll talk a little bit about the way we're set up, but as grocery, I lead grocery for all of e-commerce across Walmart. And my team does the same. So if you're speaking to Monica on beverages, that's going to cover you for both Jet and for Walmart at the same time. And she can then, her and her category specialist team can help guide you down the pathway. But their priorities are really pinned across these 5 key metrics, which Mark developed, and we know that if we get these right, we will win. So the first one is making sure that we have the right assortment. We have it. How are we accessing it? Is it a direct fulfillment? Is it drop ship? Is it marketplace? Private label is also very important. And we need to really have a tight plan to ensure we have the right assortment and we're getting it the most efficient way. Finding it is really, hey, how is our search working? And there are so many things. I'm not going to cover this in great detail, but consumers have to be able to find it. One of the great parts of e-commerce is the endless shelf. One of the drawbacks of e-commerce is the endless shelf because it's hard to find. And as you know, when you're in a grocery store, you can run into impulse items at the end of the aisle. You can sit and look at a set and see the adjacencies very quickly. So our team works very hard to try to build the right shelves to allow the consumer to find what they need. And we're trying to create technology that helps enhance that experience. However, having proper content, which I'll get to in a minute, will be critical because most of our consumers search. They'll go into the search bar and type in what they're looking for. That's the primary way consumers find what they want. But what we know is that's not the best way to do it because it doesn't save the consumer time. So really strong content that we can optimize helps drive a better find it experience and helps save the consumer time, which will then result in more conversion and more sales. So our team is working on that as well as display it. So display it is, hey, how does it show up? What does it look like? What's the content? Is there enhanced content? Are we showing 2-day delivery? That entire front-facing experience tells the consumer who we are and how to engage with us. So if you're interested in driving great content, we have great content providers that we partner with, and we also have a content studio that works with those content providers, and we can help guide you through that pathway to ensure that you have the richest content available. Fourth is pricing it. So we want to be competitive in the market, and as I just shared, on Walmart, we essentially follow store price on store shared SKUs. On SKUs that are not in store, we're going to be competitive in the market. We're not going to try to lead the market down. We're going to just try to make sure we're in the ballpark because we are an EDLP player. On Jet, we're pretty much going to follow a similar strategy. I'll talk more about Jet later because there's 2 parts of Jet, really. But at the end of the day, we want to be competitive in the market, and we're going to put pricing rules in place to do that. We're willing to work with you on product, but that's pretty simple. I think it's pretty straightforward. And then finally, on delivering, there are many things that impact delivering the product to the consumer. First is setting up the proper contract in store to ensure we can resource your items correctly. So getting through what we would call the GSM process is very, very critical to making sure we can receive your product and then do a 2-day promise on delivery. So deliver is really about showing the 2-day flag to the consumer and making sure we fulfill that 2-day promise to the consumer. And our objective in that area is to really make sure we're doing this 90% or better of the time. So we're doing a lot on the back end to enhance that, but those are the 5 key pillars that we are focused on any given day of the week. And whether you're talking to me or whether you're talking to my counterpart that does health and beauty or somebody in fashion, these 5 metrics spin across our entire retail network, and this is what we're focused on. Okay, oops, went too fast. So the question becomes, how do you work with us, right? I get a lot of questions on how do I get something in store and on online grocery pickup, and how do I get it online and do the 2 connect, and what about Jet? So let me just share with you a little bit about how you can engage with us. Our best-in-class suppliers do one thing, and I think it's really great when they do this, is they have a Walmart team that calls on brick and mortar, and within that Walmart team, they have an e-commerce person driving e-commerce within that team. That works really well because we work very closely with our brick and mortar counterparts. So if you start from the bottom of this slide and work up, you have your store category team. As you know, you're working with those folks and you're determining what is getting authorized to be on the mod. And they do JBPs and the like. Once you're on the mod and you're in an online grocery pickup store, the likelihood of your item being on online grocery pickup is pretty high because we pretty much put most SKUs on the online grocery platform app if they are in an online grocery pickup store. So in order to get there, you need to go through the store team and get on the mod. That is the unlock for online grocery pickup. With that said, our team creates the content for anything that goes to online grocery pickup. So once you negotiate with the store buyer and they say, yep, we're taking your item, it's going to go in the mod, they're then going to start the process to try to drive content. I have a whole team propped up for food that they are looking at content and we're making sure it's perfected because whatever we put on Walmart.com will flow over to online grocery pickup with regards to pictures, titles, images, those types of things. So we work very closely. After you do that, then the question becomes, hey, I want to be able to work on e-commerce. How do I unlock that opportunity? And so I'm going to skip through marketing for a minute. And I'm going to go to the top of the slide. We're going to kind of sandwich this thing. So we would then say, hey, you could talk to us, and I'll put you in touch with the right category manager or category specialist. Our structure is such that we don't have a lot of layers in our organization. It's myself, a category manager, and a specialist. And a specialist could own the entire coffee category, right? So they're going to own everything from setting it up to the content to all of the metrics I talked about before, the 5 It's. They own the entire P&L plus the marketing. So we'll get you in touch with them, and they can then say, all right, we know that you want to bring your SKUs on site. How do we want to fulfill those SKUs or acquire those SKUs? There's various channels that we can do that, and we can then help you get on the online platform. We can also then determine if you want to be, like, ideally most of our folks want to be on both Jet and on Walmart, and that for food is the best way to set up. But if there's something that is in your world you want to talk through, we can help determine how do you do that, how do we set you up for both. And that's where it comes to replenishment, because that decision really is pinned with how do you want to drive your supply chain side of your business, and we can help guide what that looks like on the back end. Then last but not least, you want to highlight and drive your product. So we have a Walmart marketing team and a Jet marketing team, and we work very closely. We have a partnership marketing team. So at the end of the day, it all comes to us. We partner with the partnership team, and we can make sure that marketing is spread correctly across all avenues. So we're really trying to demystify that for all of you. If any of you were at the summit, I think it was last week or the week before, you learned a lot about partnership marketing. we partner with those folks and we work very closely to say, hey, what are you doing to lift the brand and what can we do to lift the brand? And we do that with our best partners. So with that said, I'm going to talk a little bit about who are we and, you know, why does this really matter, right? So obviously you're on the call and we thank you for joining the call. You know, we're very flattered that you take this time out of your day to do this. We all know that being online is not a question anymore. I think in the past we used to think, is this really going to happen? And we know it is. The question is going to be, where is it going to happen? And again, we feel pretty good about our chances. So you heard me talk about our various platforms. There's Walmart and there's Jet, right? The only caveat to this is I would say in the Walmart world, you have Walmart.com and then you have Walmart online grocery pickup. And I think you all know that. The question is, how does this strategy harmonize? How do we work together? So if you think about Walmart, brick and mortar, they can get to 90% of the U.S. population within 10 miles, right now with their footprint. They absolutely dominate on footprint. So when you think about the world of click and collect, we are expanding. We have about 1,100 stores today. We're going to continue to grow that, and that's going to allow the consumer the ability to get whatever their weekly shop taken care of with, you know, single unit, low average unit retail SKUs. They can pull up, they can get it. It's a great experience. We're testing delivery out of stores in 100 markets at this point in time. So that is a great platform. Then we come in as Walmart.com and we say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and halo that experience and we're going to offer the tail as well as the core. And if you don't want to go to the store to pick it up or you're not near a Walmart, we will ship this to you. The only thing we don't ship is fresh goods with Walmart.com. You then think about Jet. So as big as Walmart is, there is a part of the U.S. that Walmart doesn't actually have a footprint, places like New York City. So there are some metro areas that really spend very high millennial and are looking for very edgy, unique things. So that is where Jet comes in. So we have honed in the strategy at Jet to say, you know what, we're going to lean in and own these metro cities and really create an experience that resonates with those consumers. So when you take a map and you take Walmart and then layer on Jet, we would be able to cover the entire country and give consumers exactly what they want. That's how we work together, and that's how our strategy is lined up. And with Jet, they have similar situation. They have the fresh delivery within New York. They also have total delivery across the country of non-fresh products. So it's built very similar to Walmart, but it is a true pure play. We do not have any stores in the city. So if you think about this, where are we going next? We have a lot of plans, and this is just a taste of some of the things we're working on, and some of them are already in play, right? So we unlaunched free shipping when somebody hits $35. We have easy reorder. So the beauty of easy reorder, if you've not heard of this, is if you're in a Walmart store and you transact, we have access to that transactable tender. And when you come to Walmart.com to shop, there's going to be an easy reorder section that will show you everything you've bought in the past, and you can just hit, yep, I want it again, and you can just add it to cart. And vice versa, the same thing happens. So if you've ever bought something online, it'll be saved in your easy reorder. So again, the idea is to save time for the consumer, right? Take the friction out of the shopping path for them. So this is one we're working on. We have it, but we're trying to find ways to actually enhance this. We have the ability in the Walmart world to do a pickup discount or pick up today. So you can order it online and go pick it up in store. And then, of course, we have online grocery pickup, and we're expanding that. On Jet, we just acquired Partial, and as you know, Walmart just acquired some folks as well. And this world of acquisition and expansion, I imagine that will continue. I don't know exactly what's being worked on today, but I think in the spirit of moving quickly, we have to figure out what we can do versus what we need to acquire to do. But Partial was a great partnership for us, and that will really allow us to unlock better delivery within the city of New York. We have a partnership with Google Voice, as you might know, and you can order your food online with the Google Voice tool. And then last but not least, we're testing various things every single day, and we'll continue to do that. We have a whole team set up that does nothing but think about innovation and the future. Oops, sorry. So with that said, we're very excited about the future. We're very excited about working with you, and we think that there's a lot of exciting things to come. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Megan.
Great. I'll actually Paul's hopping on here. Well, thanks everyone. There's some really wonderful insights there. So I'm sure very valuable for the folks on the line. So we've now entered into the Q&A section of the program. As I mentioned, all participants are mute, but you can ask your questions in the Q&A box. And we have a little bit of time left, so we'll try to get to as many of the questions as possible. First one, this would probably be good for Carmela and Monica. How do we set ourselves up for grocery pickup?
Yeah, so how you set yourself up for grocery pickup is you will work with your brick and mortar counterpart, because being in grocery pickup is all about having the SKU available in the store. And we don't control the store mods. The brick and mortar folks in Bentonville control that. So you work with your store buyer, and then they'll guide you to work with our content team, or you can just call us direct and we'll guide you to work with our content team. And you can then send your information over in the terms of whether it's through Salsify or Quickie or whomever, and we'll ingest your content and get it online for you.
Great. Now, what is the right way to go about setting KPIs on Walmart.com and the Jet.com ecosystem?
So this is Monica. I would recommend working really transparently with your buyer. So working together to identify what those metrics are going to be. And the more transparent you can be as a supplier, the easier it is to work together. So if you're able to identify a specific metric that is important to your business, the buyer can align to help work with you against those metrics. And then you can do the same in return. So I think Carmela did a really great job of laying out what some of our key KPIs are. So being able to work together and partner to achieve both of our goals is really what's going to drive win-win.
Yeah, and I'd add on to that too. When it gets really tactical, when we think about KPIs, I mean, we have to have metrics and ways to pull in order to have visibility into the activity that's happening. And we talk to a lot of people who work on Walmart and Jet, and feel that they have limited access sometimes. I usually tell people to kind of get over that because as Carmela and Monica have laid out, the KPIs are pretty clear. And while unlike your retail link data that gets down to the exact turn per week per store, the directional data when you're dealing with a 3% market penetration is just as rich at this point in time. And so internal teams and analysts who may be getting hung up on the quote unquote system of pulling data potentially out of Supplier Center or triangulating back into Walmart.com's retail link. I say you can do a whole lot with what you've got, and as long as you can set your standards, to Monica's point, with your particular buyer and merchant partner, you can accomplish a lot together. And so KPI setting in terms of identifying what those are, and then how you're going to align on how you're going to pull them, and then the cadence of reporting and matching back is really important.
Perfect, thanks. Another question just came in over the intersection here of the brick and the click. So really, what does engagement look like, especially when we're speaking with our brick merchant, and then when we're speaking with our click merchant?
That's a great question, and I would say it's a broad question. So I think great engagement really starts with how you're structured as a company. So I'll speak to this and tell you what I have seen work and what I have seen not work so well. What I have seen be a struggle is when our CPG counterpart has two different worlds calling on Walmart. Often we'll see people with an e-commerce world that calls on all of e-commerce, and then we have the Walmart team that calls on just brick and mortar. And those two worlds on the CPG side don't always come together very well. On the flip side, we have partners that have both e-commerce and brick and mortar all within the Walmart team. And we find that to be the most effective because with the retailer of the size of Walmart, we really want to be in harmony with the store and really drive the synergy that Walmart brings to the consumer. And it's very hard to do it when there's two silos on the other side, and we are moving so quickly. So the best way to move quickly and position yourself for success is to really, number one, structure correctly. That's number one. I would say number two, transparency. So I know Megan did a great job talking about that, and I can't stress it enough. There's going to be days you may or may not like what we say or do, but we're going to be honest and we're going to share with you where we stand so that we can have a better partnership and win together because we realize we have to win with you. So I would say on the brick and mortar side, nothing has really changed there, right? But make sure you're aware of, hey, am I in an online grocery store and do I have content readily available? So have I partnered with a content provider to do this? If not, I would recommend you get content so that when you set your item up, we can link essentially link the wires together to get your items live and on site and looking healthy. On the .com side, if you're not in a store and you want to be present on Walmart, we would love to have you. So we would then say, reach out, and we can certainly get Megan or whomever contact information. You can certainly reach out to me, and I'll put you in contact with the right folks. And one of our specialists will talk to you, and we'll talk about your options, and we'll help guide you through, hey, all right, here's where we're at. Where do you ultimately want to be? How do you want your items to show up? Where do you want them to show up? And then we can walk you through what you need to do, from content to supply chain to the contract, the whole 9 yards. So I would say that the critical thing is keep it simple, have the right structure, and then make sure you have content capability.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. Good word, Carmela. I'll piggyback in terms of some of you guys that are on the line kind of play a very strategic role and potentially a very tactical role as well. And a caveat that I'll throw in there, and kind of building on what Carmela said in terms of having specifically within the Walmart ecosystem, having a dedicated team that links between the omni of the brick and the click, is that while that should be strategically positioned, know that the skill sets that support your brick and the skill sets that potentially support your click may look different. And so give your teams time and decide whether or not your workforce that's going to be actually managing the day in and day out of the business, if you're going to transition traditional click analysts or click category managers over into, brick analysts or brick category managers over into the click world, that it is different. It's not harder. But it is very different, and it requires potentially a different way of thinking through the operational aspects. Again, not harder, just very different. And so Carmela is right, definitely an omni-channel approach in terms of how you interact with the entire ecosystem from a strategic level. But when it comes to the actual people executing the work, make sure that strategy pushes all the way down, and that you've got the right people in the right seats to make sure that they're set up for success.
Yeah, Megan, that's great. Can I build on that just a little more? I think you said it, but I'm going to say it more directly. You may or may, a lot of folks come to us and say, hey, can we have somebody sit in your office and do all this item setup? We're happy to have that happen, but what we really say is you need somebody on your team that has a catalog, that has access to your catalog, that can set up items and be a resource every day within your team. We're happy to have them here, but really they should sit with you because they're going to get great information. We're happy to help train them, though, on how to set up item content. The biggest block we get in the process of setup is not having a good item file. That will take somebody from setting something up in a couple of weeks to months. So I would do a self-assessment to say, do I actually have an item file at this point that I could easily convert into essentially an upload form, so to speak, to get items on site.
And that item file too should include not just the assortment you think you want to sell online, but all of your assortment. Because I think what you're going to need to do is have a very transparent conversation with your online buyer about what assortment really makes sense. So it's not always what your first instinct might tell you. So that catalog, that item file needs to really have your full assortment in it.
It's a great point. It's a great point. You'll hone it down to the right strategy together.
Exactly.
Great. Well, wonderful job there on the question and answers, and thank you all for those who did submit questions. This is just about the end of the webinar. Just a few housekeeping items before we depart. There will be a survey which will appear as you leave the webinar today. Please let us know your thoughts on not only the content but the platform. And you could also use this as an opportunity to request more information on partnering with Clavis Insight and its family of companies, as well as One Stone and Walmart and Jet. As a special thank you for completing the survey, all survey respondents receive a copy of our popular white paper, Driving Online Channel Performance with 6 Ps E-Commerce Intelligence. Once again, thank you, Megan, Monica, and Carmela for your time and for a wonderful job with the presentation, and thank you all for attending. Again, if you would like more information on any of the companies from today, there's their contact information. And again, you could also request information partnering with them via the post-event survey. Well, this wraps up today's webinar. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you, and goodbye.